Awesome. Thanks so much, Joel. That was a great talk and is a little hard to follow, but I'll do my best here. And what a great message to end on. That message of hope, which I hope to kind of continue here a little bit with a hopefully uplifting conservation project here. My name is JJ Apodaca, and I'm talking today about a project we're doing in collaboration with the Turtle Survival Alliance. I'm with Tangled Conservation and Amphibian and Reptile Conservancy, and I'll get started here. So many of us know, but I thought it'd be worth going over here that the illegal turtle trade has become, one of, if not the most imminent threats to turtle diversity worldwide. We heard, Craig touch on that earlier, and Joel in his talk. But I think it's important to hit those numbers, right? And the numbers of this problem are really shocking, and these numbers are just absolutely crushing to anybody who cares about turtle conservation worldwide. And I just put these numbers up here because these are the some of the legal numbers we know about. Millions of animals a year being sold in China, and millions of animals a year being exported out of the United States legally. So if this is happening legally, what are those numbers that aren't showing up on the books and that we can't see? And really one of the most unfortunate parts about this is that it's so multifaceted, that no turtle is really safe from this. Large turtles are often, for food or pets, small turtles for pets, and even turtles that aren't desirable for either of those things. There's just been a huge rise in trade in turtle parts and cartilage and tons of pounds of cartilage exported each year. So this isn't just a problem for a small subset of turtles and tortoises, but literally all of them. So there's a real need, I think, to at least slow the illegal trade of turtles worldwide. And we all know this, but we've seen at least the beginnings of this form up over the last decade or two. And in the U.S., we've seen a lot of these efforts begin to develop, and what I think like to consider is really a three-phased or a three-pronged approach here. And this is really what we need to expand out, both in the U.S. and worldwide. And I think of this in three phases. Phase one, we need to work more on dissuading or regulating collection. Phase two, we need to work on confiscations and stopping, or confiscating turtles that have been collected illegally. And then phase three, which hasn't been thought of as much, is we need to get those animals back out on the landscape, which is what this project is all about. So again, phase one, we've seen this really positive shift in national and international policy regarding trade. CITES has really stepped up. In the United States, we've seen Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies and a lot of states, most recently South Carolina, passing legislation to try to slow or stop a lot of these issues. And so this is a move in a positive direction. And perhaps even more positive in phase two, we've seen, at least in the US and in a lot of countries around the world, we've seen law enforcement really step up, and really has had a monumental effort in starting to enforce these policies compared to what it was a decade or two ago. We see states like Florida having huge, confiscations and busts. We just heard about one from Mexico. We see the LA airport really stepping up, and so this is, I think, a really positive step in the right direction. And just as a little side note, if you're interested in this problem and you want to get more involved, there's really two groups working on this and doing some really good work about connecting biologists and conservationists with those law enforcement agencies, the Park Turtle Networking Team, TNT, and NEPARK's collaborative to combat illegal turtle trade, the CCIT. So you can find those on the web and get in contact with their leadership. They're doing a lot of really good stuff to promote this kind of work. But with that phase two, the increased regulation, increased confiscation, leaves us with a new problem in phase three, which is how to get, or what do we do with all these confiscated turtles, right? And you heard that earlier in Craig's talk about, once we have these confiscations of thousands of animals, we've seen it in Madagascar, it then becomes a huge burden. What do we do with all these? And ecologically, they're dead unless we get them back out into the wild, right? You've stopped part of the problem, but we haven't helped the problem alleviate itself. And we're starting to see a lot of work going towards making this right again. And we've seen the AZA and different zoos really step up to create programs like the SAFE program, the San Diego Zoo, creating entire infrastructure to handle some of these confiscated turtles. But I think that we can all agree that what we really want with these turtles and tortoises is to get them back into the wild, right? I think most of us know that that's the ultimate goal here, is that we don't just want to take them away from people. We want to have them doing ecologically what they should be doing anyway, and reproducing and building populations back in the wild. And that's really especially important when you look at the species that are seeing the biggest growth in collection. And, I just talked about the US species here, but I think we see this trend worldwide. And these are species that often have really diminutive populations anyway, and that are in the most need of those individuals. Things like bog turtles, wood turtles, increasingly box turtles. Small populations that without that genetic diversity are going to soon have impact beyond just losing the actual animal in the population. And of course, there's some concerns with repatriating these individuals, right? Most notably disease and loss of genetic lineages or mixing of genetic lineages. But I think, again, we can all agree that assuming the proper precautions are taken, this is really where we want to be, is getting them back out into the wild. So I'll let the disease people deal with the disease issue. That's certainly not my area of expertise. But the obvious solution for the genetic mixing or genetic diversity issues is to create a genetic database that roughly identifies where a turtle came from. And, in certain species, we're going to be able to identify exactly where they came from. And that's fantastic. But for something widespread across the landscape, like a box turtle, I think our best chances is to get roughly where they came from within kilometers or miles. And in some cases, given the landscape fragmentation efforts, we'll probably actually be helping these populations by spreading genes across the landscape in a positive way and helping genetic diversity and unlocking some of those inbreeding issues and that sort of stuff. And this is really, this isn't any kind of groundbreaking work. We've essentially been building the building blocks for this in the fields of phylogeography and population genetics and population assignment, computational skill sets and those sorts of things for a few decades now. So really, this is just starting to be able to get access to the proper genetic data that we need, and get enough of that genetic data and be able to use these tools that we've been developing for years now. So why box turtles? Well, this type of genetic database is actually being undertaken for a few species. We're talking mainly about box turtles here because of the breadth of this problem. and I mean that across the landscape. It's such a widely distributed genus in North America, and it presents a fairly large challenge as well in terms of just because of how widespread it is, because of getting all those samples, and that's why we want to make everybody out there aware of this. You've probably seen our calls for tissue samples already, but anybody who's willing to submit tissue samples with known geographic locality, that'd be really useful. But also, box turtles are, I think anybody who really works with them are increasingly worried about their status. Again, we've seen a huge uptick in the poaching of them. And, and certainly they take their hits from other things like development and roads as well. And so this is a species that really needs this kind of tool to get as many individuals back onto the landscape as possible. So again, we kind of mentioned this before, but we're focusing on all members of the North American box turtle genus. So any of those in Mexico and throughout the United States are of interest to this project. And if you're willing to help, we're accepting any source of DNA, blood, nail clip swabs. We can send you a lot of those materials as well. And the approach we're taking with this is to design a set of biotinylated baits to achieve a really high number of genetic markers at a relatively low price per sample. As you can imagine, if we're talking about confiscations in the thousands, we really need the price of this to be as low as possible, right? So that's a big consideration here, but we also need the resolution of thousands of genetic samples per individual, and so I think this approach is a really good way to kind of balance that. And you'll hear in a couple talks here that also there's some great work coming out of Schaefer's lab and Peter Scott, who will talk about it. A new box turtle genome makes this really achievable and gives us a great tool to work with. So I'll let them tell that story, but this also makes it a great model system to try this database with. So, in the future, well, again, I'd just like to say that if you have tissues or are willing to share any of those for this project, please get in contact with me or anybody at TSA. But, this is something we really hope to build out overall freshwater turtles and tortoises worldwide. Really with next-gen sequencing and the cost and how it's been really lowered over the last few years, it makes this possible to give us a tool to be able to address, this huge issue of illegal collections and getting these animals back out onto the landscape. And I failed to mention earlier, there are a couple other projects for bog turtle, one for bog turtle, one for wood turtle that I know of, doing this sort of thing. So we're hopeful that, within the next few years, we'll have this tool for at least a lot of different species that, we can help back out and get them into the wild. And really the other great thing about this is, again, with the new genetic tools, there's become so much is available in terms of how much we can sequence. And I think we're pretty close, if not already there, to the point where we can be able to uniquely identify individuals. And so I think we can all think of turtle species where, there's so few that we could genetically identify every single individual out there in case they're poached or confiscated. And so it's a really exciting time, and this kind of stuff makes me hopeful for the future of turtle conservation. So I think I only have about 42 seconds left or so. But I'd like to say thanks for everybody involved in this project, and obviously the TSA and the folks who provided pictures for this and a lot of the data on states and federal efforts on this. And With that, I guess I could maybe take one question. I don't